Hi there, this is Brooks Whittington with halfwheel.com. I have next to me Carson Serino of Serino Cigar Company. Wanted to highlight somebody a little bit smaller in terms of a more boutique brand, and Carson and I hit it off in 2016 when I covered his booth for the first time, and he's got some really interesting ideas and releases coming. And I wanted to see if we could talk about those. What do you think?
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. Fan of the site.
Thank you.
Yep.
Fan of the cigars.
Yeah.
The brand started in 2016. The Serino brand started in 2016. But you actually have been in the business a very long time, and
yeah.
I'd love to go through that with the viewers and talk about exactly how you started, because I find it fascinating when cigar manufacturers start so young in a business that perhaps you didn't necessarily have an interest in to begin with, but now do.
Yeah, well, my dad's been in the industry for about almost 25 years now, and I'm only 29, so as early as I can remember, we've been a part of this industry. Started off 25 years ago as just a retailer. Very small retailer, and started with his own house brands, and then slowly, began to grow with his house brands, and that turned into a full manufacturing side, which mainly he created a specialization on just the good value naked bundles, value price boxes, everything in that would retail around $3 to $7. I grew up around this my whole life, and even started working at his retailer sites as well. When I got to college, and this was, I would say, 15, 18 years in the industry, we started talking about wanting to do a lot of our own premium stuff, and through the years we've just cultivated a lot of good working relationships, and that's kind of how Serino Cigar Co. came about. I wanted to make cigars with my dad that we both really enjoyed, and create something genuine and with a lot of attention to detail on the quality, and yeah.
But you started off long before that. You were young, very, very young, when you started actually working, not necessarily with, obviously, in the cigar company, but you started doing stuff with the actual company itself in a very minor roles. How old were you when you started doing just minor stuff?
I mean, my dad made me work from a pretty young age, so I'd be in middle school after work, or after school he'd pick me up. I'd either be playing hockey or at the packing warehouse and just packing boxes.
Middle school?
Yeah, at the end of middle school, beginning of high school, for sure, all through high school. That was the way I made money. And in high school, that's when I started running My Cigar Club, which we had two bays. One bay was APS Distributors, the other bay was My Cigar Club, and they connected in the back.
And what was what was My Cigar Club?
That was his retail store. So it was a members only, or open to the public up front, members only club in the back. And I, through high school, I ran the front of that. So that's where I started learning, the retail side of things, and learning about all the different brands, packaging.
Did you ever feel like you wanted to do something else, or was this something that you just felt like that it was a natural progression on what you wanted to do?
So I went to school for business. I knew I wanted to create something on my own, and I would say this, it was more of a natural progression of things I wanted to do. When I worked at a marketing advertising firm throughout college, and that didn't really ignite much passion in me, and cigars always have. Maybe not when I was in middle school, but towards when I started getting into high school, being around members, when I first started smoking my really nice cigars and not just bundled and valued stuff, it kind of that's where all the interest and passion started. So,
well, and you wanted to do something different than what your father did, obviously, cigars, but not necessarily the same type situation. So you started Serino Cigar Company in 2016, and it was right off the bat, I imagine, very different than what your father was doing in terms of, a process, as well as the idea of perhaps concentrating on more boutique stuff as opposed to boutique releases, as opposed to more bundle stuff, releases and things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. And at that time, it was all the boutique stuff that was like really inspiring me. Like, I remember the first cigar that kind of blew me away was an ECCJ by Illusione, and it was a lot different than the stuff we were bringing to market. And also, I think my dad kind of had a passion too, but he was, a little timid about moving into a wholly new business model. And once I told him I wanted to be part of it, I think that made him more susceptible or approachable about the whole idea. And we started moving forward while I was in college on it.
When you when Serino Cigar Company started, you debuted with 4 different lines.
Yes.
I reviewed one of them, the Double X.
Yes.
Very good cigar. I enjoyed it immensely, and that was one of the reasons that I was very surprised at maybe not how much I enjoyed it, but perhaps the depth that it had, considering where it came from. It's a new company and that kind of thing. What factory are you working with right now?
So we'll always be working with La Corona and Omar Gonzalez Alamán in Esteli. We just have a really good relationship with him. Like the whole process, he has his own farms and the factory. I like that he doesn't use Lieberman machines. I like that he makes he has a special cutting system for his wrappers. I like that he ferments, does everything in-house. And then we're also working with Tabacalera Palma right now on the new Taino project. And that was more so done to honor the Taino people.
Well, let's get into that, because you started this the Taino was released last year, debuted last year, and that was the white label, which is a milder blend, correct? This year you've got the Taino Heritage, which is a more let's say medium bodied blend. Yeah. But the idea behind the actual release itself was one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, because it's something that I find fascinating, in that you want to actually tell these people's story and actually have a cigar that actually is built around the idea of bringing awareness to something that perhaps a lot of people don't realize where these origins came from with tobacco. So tell us a little bit about that.
So the Taino people, just the history of tobacco has always really been fascinating to me. And the Taino people were the indigenous tribes of the Caribbean islands, mainly in Hispaniola, Cuba, and Puerto Rico. And they were the first recorded people to cultivate tobacco in a cigar type format, to roll it up, the style of plants, to put cigars in a cigar format and not like pipe tobacco, cigarettes, cigarillos. And so I wanted to get to the root of that and show people a lot of like where this history came from. So with the Taino project, I did the Heritage blend and our original blend, and I tried to make those blends as well about the, I would say, the social dynamic of the people, or the, they're really, they're calm, easygoing, yet complex people. So I wanted the blend packaging to be a little bit more simple, but show, complexity to it as well. And I did a lot of studying at the Leon Center in Dominican Republic. So I learned a lot about their culture, and named all of my sizes after them, with the Manicado, Jokahu, and the Hamaca.
And these are all words that in the language itself, or what they mean specifically?
So one of them is slang. I think when you look at culture, you have multiple, can't just, pin down a culture with one thing. So I wanted to bring different aspects of their culture to the name. So hamaca is just a hammock, it's an object. And then one is spiritual. Yokahu is the spirit of the sky. And then Manicado just was something to describe a lot of the farmers that worked on it, like a bigger, heavier set farmer. It meant a big person with a even more like valiant, loving heart. So I think that described the people very well. They were like I said, very sophisticated, and with their systems, grown tobacco the way they built, and now they're pretty much extinct, but they were the basis of where our industry kind of started.
The logo itself is actually also interesting as well. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, the logo is a bird, and we looked at one of their birds that they had in their hieroglyphic art, and I just wanted to create something similar to that, but I also wanted to make it a little bit more palatable for the market.
So it's not a direct copy.
It's not a direct copy.
It's just inspired by.
It's inspired by. Yeah, a lot of this stuff, like I said, is inspired by it. With the white band, the reason I went with the white band, it got the second most votes last year, but it had the red dot in the middle, and I just believe, reading about these people, they just had like a lot of love and passion in their hearts. So I wanted to put the red dot in the center to kind of symbolize that. But still, it was very, very simple at the same time.
And you have more coming out, not just these blends. So you got more blends coming out.
Yeah. So we have the Taino blend that was made at Tabacalera Palma with Hochi Blanco, and like I said, the reason why that happened is after doing more research and kind of sinking my teeth more into the history behind it. I realized that they have a lot of Dominican culture. I mean, a lot more Dominican roots than I thought, more so even like Cuba and Puerto Rico. And not to say it felt disingenuous, but I wanted to do something that felt more authentic and use Dominican tobacco and use a factory that I've also wanted to work with for a while. So that's why the Dominican line came about.
Perfect. And you've got more coming out next year? Another?
It's to be determined. We are working on stuff. But I might have another Taino line or a different line coming from the Dominican as well. And
speaking of that, you've got other stuff. And obviously, and this is another interesting thing that I wanted to show off, was the vintage 2012. Now, this is only in one size, an A, which is not a normal vitola to release in terms of just these days. It's a very large size. What's the exact size on this?
It's 9 1/4 by 49. Yeah, 9 1/4 by 49.
Ugh, big size. And what's the interesting thing about this?
Okay,
besides the size, obviously.
It's called Serino Vintage 2012, and what we did with this is we used a multi-leaf single-year origin of tobacco for that. So everything in that came from 2012, and that mainly happened because I was always really into like what the guys at Mbacho were doing, or other people that like doing a cosecha or a single year origin, or creating some kind of vintage stuff. I always liked PG growing up. That was one of those other brands that
Paul Grammarian.
Yeah, that kind of inspired me to, make boutique cigars. And they always dated their stuff and made some. I don't think they really ever made a single year vintage, but I wanted to do something in that style. So I went to Omar, started talking about it. Didn't have a ton of tobacco, and wanted to make just one size, something that it smoked really well in, and we went with an A. So
will be other sizes in this, or probably
not?
Just the one size.
Just the one size.
You've got what, 1,000 of these? Is that right?
1,000 of those, yeah.
Priced at what?
$18.95.
They release this at the show?
Yeah, at the show. So those will ship next week. The new Taino probably won't ship for a couple months. This was more so just to show people what we had going on, a demo prototype. But yeah, the A's are ready to go. We rolled those in August, September of last year. So got 10 months of age on it. Really old tobacco.
What's the blend on it?
It's a Habano 2000 Oscuro, a Esteli Jalapa. I mean, not Esteli, Jalapa Criollo 98 binder, and then Criollo 98, Corojo 99, and a little bit of Ometepe. So
awesome. Well, you got other stuff coming out, though. You got other ideas about what's coming out. So give me an idea on what you're working on.
So with that, I wanted to get more so into unique vitolas and show the artisan and craft style of cigar making. I feel like a lot of us as an industry, kind of use just like rinse and repeat sizes, and I don't know, it gets monotonous, like just doing Toro, Robusto, Gordo, and maybe Corona Gorda. In the last 5 years, I feel like we've started to see a Corona Gorda resurgence. But there's a lot more to cigars, and I want to show and highlight the factories we work with and their craftsmanship of what they can do. So next year I'm working on I want to do more releases like this, maybe even just two Vitola sizes in a single blend, and just them be like a unique size, unique concept, and that's kind of where I'm focused on right now, especially as a smaller blend, trying to get away from, like I don't mean to make it sound jaded.
You have a unique opportunity being smaller,
yes,
and having a little bit more support with the other side of the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can actually go out and you can actually have a little bit more leeway to play around with things and see what you can do in that regard, as opposed to having to do perhaps the normal sizes immediately right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. APS has afforded me a good opportunity to be creative with, how we approach Serino. Not everyone else has like a good solid business model that's, keeping the company moving forward while we try to, get into more of passion projects.
And speaking of that, right now your booth is now attached to APS. You've told me that perhaps there's a possibility you're going to split away from that in terms of having a completely separate identity next year. Yeah,
absolutely. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while, for the past couple of years. I just think they need to be branded separately so they both create their own clear-cut identity. Brand identity is very important to me. It's just kind of the matter of using all of your resources the most efficiently, and for the first couple of years, that's what we've been trying to do, and also trying to use APS as leverage of the good companies good retailers that we work with to help get Serino started and rolling by, using those connections. So, but yeah, next year I'm planning on doing our own booth, own Serino booth. It might be smaller, but I think it will better highlight who we are as a brand and what we're trying to do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you coming by and telling us about stuff.
Yeah, likewise. I appreciate you guys having me and, supporting Taino and Serino and
well, like
covering us every year.
I love the idea of somebody a little bit smaller, a little bit different, and having somebody who has such interesting ideas about something new and trying new things, and it's always, to me, is always interesting.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So that's the interview for today. Any questions or anything? Or are we done? That's a nice look. We have coverage coming up on halfwheel.com all day today, and most of tomorrow as well. It'll continue on for the next week or so with the new releases in the booths. Check out halfwheel.com for all the coverage.